Safety Committee meeting to order, please. Public Defenders up first, Mr. Zoni.
Shane, you're on mute.
My apologies. So let me start again. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I just have the report this evening and this afternoon for February 2022. In the month of February, we had 83 new applications. That's a slight increase from last year in February. 72 cases were closed and an active caseload of 1,650 cases. In the month of February, in regards to the council at first arraignment attorneys, it had 4 nighttime arraignments or after hours arraignments. And on the regular business hours, we had 74 arraignments conducted by my staff and myself. And that's all I have to report this month. Any questions on any of that or anything else, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Shane? Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Chairman.
Probation?
Yeah, hi everyone. Have a request to accept the grant from DCJS for our 13A classification in the amount of $15,082. And the term of that is July 1st of 2022 to June 30th of 23. And that's the same amount we've been getting the last several years, and it has been already budgeted.
I'll move it, Morel.
Second?
Second, Hoatling.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And the other item is just the annual report from 2021 that I submitted last month for everyone to review. If there's any questions or not.
Any
I
questions?
move we accept the annual report.
I'll second it.
All in
Mettler.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Fire coordinator?
Good afternoon, everybody. My stuff is up. I can't see what's coming up. I think I might have lost you.
Are you on phone or are you on the computer?
I'll wing it here if you guys can hear me. There should be 2 resolutions coming up for preventive maintenance stuff on the fire training tower and the propane fueled props out there.
The first resolution, George, is to register the vehicles assigned and are operated by the fire coordinator.
I'm having some internet issues here. I can't quite hear you.
Can you hear me? All right, I'm gonna read the resolution and then we'll talk about it in the committee. If you can chime in, please do so. The first resolution is to register the vehicle assigned and are operated by the fire coordinator's office as policy section.
Yeah, I didn't hear the whole question. I'm in a bad spot in my truck, but
I think we just lost them.
I mean, it seems pretty simple to register a vehicle, so I don't know if there's any questions. I'll move the resolution.
I'll second it,
Kippy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And the other request is to enter in a multi-year preventive maintenance agreement with Lion Protects.
I'm
Is
back
this
in now. I
something-
think I can hear you.
Is this something new because it's a new, a new building, or is this something that we've had and we're just renewing?
This
George?
this is for the new training center. We're past the 1-year warranty on it.
Okay, is it budgeted?
Yes.
Yes, it is
according-
budgeted.
Yeah, according to the controller, it's budgeted.
Michael?
Yeah, I don't know if the connection is good enough, but I was wondering if George could just talk about why Ryan Protects was selected. I think otherwise it sounds like a good thing to move forward.
George, did you hear the question? So George, try to come back on before we pass this resolution. I'm going to move on and see if you can get yourself in a good spot so we can ask questions, please. I think that's a pertinent question. So Kelly, let's skip this resolution and we'll come back to it once George comes back on.
He's actually got another one too, so
Yeah,
let me
but
get
it's
to the next.
impossible
Yeah, I
to
know.
try to do it this way, so.
EMS.
EMS?
Okay, first one is we have updated our critical care transport policy. Basically, for those of you that don't know, this is a policy between 911, all the EMS agencies in the county, and the hospital. Originally, this is in relation to transports out of CMHER to like a higher level of care, i.e. Albany Med. Originally, this policy was written for cardiac situations, stroke patients, and OB emergencies that needed immediate transport. That would allow the 911 center to dispatch it as a priority 1 transport, which means an immediate transport. After consultation with Dr. Weisberg from ER and Dr. Stippa, who is our CCMS medical director, we have updated that to include other situations that are life-threatening out of the ER that need immediate transport, such as amputations, severe trauma, so on and so forth. So this has been vetted and approved by all the EMS agencies in the county. The second one is just to give you an update. We were just notified last week by New York State Department of Health that all our EMT certifications and paramedic certifications are extended 1 year from the expiration date on our card. That's due to the COVID situation and the lack of availability of educational classes that were being taught at the time. So there's an additional 1 year extension on your card. So example, if your card expired the end of February 22, it's good until February of 23. Just one other thing to report that's not on the list. Our telehealth program at the 911 center that we've been working on for many months is due to start to be implemented on April 11th. This again will be used for very low acuity calls when our system is stretched out to the max and we don't have many resources available to answer those calls. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for PJ?
PJ, the telehealth, I assume it's the program we've been talking about for a while where you will connect them with a doctor via, the internet.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, PJ. Feel better. Emergency management, David Harrison could not be here. He's having a medical procedure. So I told him that I would read the resolution, which is resolution requesting to fill a part-time clerk typist position in the emergency management department. It's already been budgeted. It's already gone through all the departments.
Move it, Kippy.
Second,
Second, Morel.
before we pass it, Michael?
Well, if Jeannie, if you want to go first, but
No, you can go, Michael.
yeah, I mean, I guess my reading the resolution is that when we made the emergency management department separate, we were sort of told, multiple times that it wasn't going to need increased staffing, and if we need increased staffing, I guess we need increased staffing. That's where we are. But
It's not increased staffing. It's the existing staffing. It's just being paid for differently. It was
Correct.
being paid for out of the sheriff's department. It's now being paid for out of the existing budget, and we're not increasing the existing budget. So it's not any more money, so.
Correct.
Right. Well, isn't it being paid for because we moved money out of equipment into point one? That's what we did last month. So it seems like we had, and the reason why we're able to do that is because we had the grant. We have the E911 grant that we're paying for equipment that way. So it seems like we're kind of moving money around, but overall payroll costs are increasing, right? Because we didn't decrease the payroll costs out of the sheriff's office. We're increasing payroll costs, which means that we're either deferring the equipment costs or paying for the equipment costs out of another line item that could have paid for different equipment. So it still seems like overall staffing is increasing, which if we need to increase staffing, we need to increase
Well,
staffing. But
again, staffing is not increasing because it's the same person who's been doing the job for the last 2 years during the pandemic. As I said in point one, this is the person that headed up with Kelly Vaccaro, the call center. He also delivered meals to all the workers at the college. He delivered meals to the people that were quarantined. He did a variety of functions, which were over and above his job as a deputy. I mean, the deputy position paid $3,700. He worked many, many more hours, and it was stipulated that we would get him more money, or both deputies more money, for the additional responsibilities due to COVID. So he's not doing anything more. I know the question was brought up at point one about him doing clerical work because it's a clerk. He's not really doing clerical work. He's doing the same duties that he's done previously. And these duties have to be done. He's the same person that delivered all the test kits to all the towns in the city of Hudson and the masks and so on. And it's the same responsibilities.
okay.
Jeannie?
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question that was just answered, whether it's actually the same person, so.
Yeah, we're not increasing any new staff. It's just moving the money, and it's staying within the budget that we approved last month.
So I do have a question. At point one, I took notes and part of the conversation, I believe you, Chairman, said that the sheriff's communications positions were absorbing this cost. So this person was actually being paid out of the sheriff's point one budget in some capacity. So if the point one overall for the county isn't increasing, we are then decreasing the sheriff's point one budget for
Well,
where
that
this
would-
person.
That would be up to the sheriff's department, how we spend it. It was for 2 part-time communications positions, which I said at point one, both myself and David Harrison and civil service, from what I've been told, were unaware that they were placed in those communications positions. We had
Okay.
thought that civil service, which they did, got a special, for lack of a better term, a waiver to allow these people to work additional hours because of COVID. But for whatever reason, the previous sheriff put him in those positions. It was unbeknownst to us.
But basically, unless the sheriff comes to us and says, I'd like a budgetary decrease, the point one overall cost is increasing. And then some of the work that was being done through the sheriff's point one budget is now going to be paid through the emergency management point one budget. And then if the sheriff doesn't ask for a decrease in budget, he could then fill other positions, other workload within his office. But again, the overall cost for point one for the county would increase unless the sheriff were to say, hey, I don't need these 8 hours because it's no longer being done.
In the worst case scenario, the overall point one cost would increase by $5,000, but the overall county budget is not increasing.
Yeah, and like I said in point one, I'm not against this resolution. I just want like 100% transparency, both for the supervisors and the public, to follow, because that was part of the argument that was made, is we really need to do an analysis, right? Like standalone office versus not. What are the costs? What are the things involved? And so as we go, I want to make sure that we're being clear with what's involved and why it's involved, and that it does in fact have to do with the office moving out. I support it. I don't not support it. I think if we need this work, we need this work. But I just want to be clear, kind of how it's happening and what's happening.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I have one other follow-up question. is this role a clerk typist position, and is it okay if they're doing things like delivering test kits and delivering meals as part of this title?
Yes, they are appointed part-time positions. They're not, does not require a test. We have filled other positions in the county, or for example, our two greeters at the front desk at 401 are part-time clerk typists. We've had a part-time clerk typist work in the past, not currently, but in the past for central services, helping doing printing and things of that nature. And so they're pretty flexible in terms of what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion and a second on the
All
floor.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
He did have his report on the agenda too. Okay, just anybody have any questions on that?
I guess I'll just put it out there. It was super helpful to get that last giant shipment of test kits and masks. I really do appreciate
Do you
getting
still
that.
need more, Michael?
I know I'm like at the dregs. I'm still like giving out a small amount. So it
'Cause,
was,
I mean, I'm sure towns have extras,
yeah.
and I don't
You can
foresee us
stockpile if you
using
need
them. So,
No, I mean we're good at this point, but it was
Yeah, I
great.
just-
It was great to go from a position where we felt like we didn't have enough, and there was like some tension around who could get them, to being able to have enough that anybody who needed one could get one. So that was really great.
good.
Yeah.
I'm
Great.
glad to hear.
And New Lebanon has an excess, and they do have an expiration date, I believe, of June. So if
I
anyone.
mean, I think everybody is gonna have that, so I
The feeling is that that they'll extend the expiration dates. So,
anyway. Sheriff?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Lagonia. I have a couple things, and I'll try to breeze through them as quick as possible. The first is going to be the authorization to fill a budgeted position for full-time deputy sheriff due to a resignation for a deputy who is seeking other employment and has located said employment. That resignation is due March 18th.
I'll move it, Morel.
Thank you.
Second?
Second, Hoatling.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Just a side note on that, it'll be a savings of about 20,000. 19,900 is the total savings. The second is going to be authorization for the sheriff to fill a budgeted corporal's position. That's going to be due to a placement of a provisionary corporal who did not meet the criteria in the testing civil service process, and we're filling it with another member who did meet the criteria.
I'll move it, Hoatling.
Second?
Second, Mettler.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. Third is going to be to fill a second corporal's position. This is a midnight position. This vacancy has been open since August 28th of 21. And we're looking to fill that just to get some more coverage for our supervisory staff.
I'll move it, Morel.
Second?
Hoatling, second. Oh, Helsley, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried.
Third is going to be to move a sheriff's office vehicle to a surplus property to be sent to auction. It's a 2010 Chevy Tahoe that is no longer useful for our capacities here at the sheriff's office.
Could I just
Motion?
ask, because it often is asked, have we looked, Chairman, if there's other departments that could utilize this vehicle as opposed to the small amount we'll get at auction? Or is it
Trust me.
just so high in mileage, it's just not?
Trust me when I tell you, I don't think anyone's going to want this vehicle. I mean, it's
Okay.
the cost of fixing it's going to be well over the cost of keeping it. So.
Okay. Then I'll move the resolution.
Second?
Helsley.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. Next is for authorization of budget due to amount of insurance loss on a sheriff's vehicle. This vehicle was totaled, and we're just looking to get the money back. Basically, it's $53,800.
And is the new vehicle within the amount that we got from the insurance?
It is.
Right.
I'll move it, Morel.
Second?
Second, Hoatling.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
The next is to purchase a jail vehicle. Our current transport vehicle is over 10 years old. It's costing a lot of money to keep maintenance on this. It's just not a safe vehicle for us to be operating with for much longer. So that's a cost of $44,933.83. This is a budgeted fund.
I'll move it, Hoatling.
Second,
I'll second Shemitas.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And the last authorization to purchase computer equipment and patrol vehicles and request a budget amendment for funds of transfer. The cost is going up due to COVID. It's harder to get these computer parts, so our cost is increased slightly. We are moving some money from a personnel budget. That money is 46,724.55. We're still looking to get another 46,724.25. The total cost of all these 8 vehicles to outfit them, so on and so forth. The total cost is 49,437.1.72.
So, Sheriff, are you saying that the COVID increase between the computer and the patrol vehicle was 46,724? That's how much it went up from last year?
For these 8 vehicles, it's actually 89,940.92. But we're moving about half of that, a little more than half of that to from the personnel budget that was double accounted for.
But that 89,000 isn't the cost of the computer equipment, that's the increase in cost?
Yes, that's the increase for 8 vehicles. So it's a little over 8,000 per vehicle, obviously. These are all, we've been waiting for vehicles for a long time now. Our fleet is definitely getting older, and we're just looking to get everything outfitted so that next year we don't have to get more computer equipment at a higher cost. So we're trying to budget it all now with an increase.
Sheriff, have you been able to locate other vehicles?
You mean other vehicles as far as
Purchase.
have we looked? Yeah, but they're so far out. We've been working with this company before I even took office. We're still waiting on vehicles from last year. It's probably going to be late fall before these vehicles even come in, if they do come in this year. So we can continue to look, but I think the prices are just going to keep going up because everyone's trying to grab them. We're fighting with other entities throughout New York State just to get vehicles. So.
No, my question wasn't were we shopping. It was more of, what the status of the vehicles that we've already agreed to purchase was.
These are the vehicles we agreed to purchase.
Okay, so the fall you're talking about.
Yeah, this is an increase of just the components and the chips for the vehicles and so on and so forth at our current vendor, who we had the quote from earlier this year. Now the prices just went up. So,
Chairman Morrell?
I'm assuming, Sheriff, that you reviewed these numbers with our controller.
yes, to the best of my knowledge, Lieutenant Rivero has been in constant contact with.
All right, well, I see the controller signed off on it, so
Yeah,
I couldn't see that before. Thank you.
thank you.
So we have a first and a second on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hold on, we don't have a first and a second.
I thought
We don't have any motion.
Okay, let's start over. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll move it, Morel.
Second?
I'll second it, Mettler.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so carried.
Thank you.
Sheriff, how are we doing on staffing? How many are are we running a class? in the fall,
Well,
or
we actually lucked out. We talked with Dutchess County, and Dutchess County's doing one in June. We're hoping to have 6 or 7 in that academy. We're feverishly doing background checks. I have investigators, and actually I even employed some part-time, well, I shouldn't say employed, but utilizing part-time staff to do these background checks. So we're hoping to have 6 or 7 in. We just graduated 4. Unfortunately, one's going to Germany due to the conflict in the Ukraine. So we're hoping to have 3 out by June-ish, and then as soon as they go out, we'll have 6 or 7 back in the academy. That's for the roadside. Every day we're getting applications for both part-time and full-time. So it looks like we'll be in good shape by next year, but we're still incurring a lot of overtime based on openings.
One other question before I reach out to Supervisor Metler, but I do know that some of the small police departments, whether it's Nassau, Chatham, Philmont, are running sponsoring individuals as well. Why would an individual, no, I'm surely not speaking poorly of those 3 police departments, but why would somebody that wants to get into law enforcement be going through one of those departments as opposed to our sheriff's department? I ran into somebody the other day that didn't know. Well, I said, I don't know if we're running a class or not, but is I think looking to go through Nassau. And I asked him if he had reached out to the sheriff's department. He said he did not. So, you know, why would we not have an opportunity on those individuals? Do they just not know about it, or?
It's a good possibility. I mean, sponsorship can come from any township. That may be the township where the individual resides. They may have talked to a supervisor there that gave them, the backing. These townships don't cover costs of the academy. What we're doing is the 6 or 7 that we're putting through are already on a civil service list. They've already taken a test, and if they do pass, obviously they're open for employment through the sheriff's office. Those individuals that you're speaking of may not have taken a civil service test, so they would be obviously required to do that to get employment through the sheriff's office. For us to cover any costs of anyone, we'd like to have a good chance of employing them.
Sure. Okay. Supervisor Metler?
Yeah, in view of the question that Rob just asked, and then I have one other. What do we do in order to publicize these vacancies and our need for new employees?
Well, that's a good question. We're working on a recruiting and retention campaign. That's something that's in the process right now. Civil service tests are, posted by civil service. We're looking at our past recruiting, which was very little to none. Currently we're coming up with a plan to post these in certain areas, Facebook, social media. We're also working on a recruiting campaign for any community events that we're going to be going to, along with trying to start a new Oracle type program that we just met with Ulster County. So recruiting, retention, and drug awareness and so on and so forth are going to be primary for us in the near future here as soon as we get up and running. I mean, obviously the fair is a great opportunity. So are the community days, and so are all the supervisors out there, in the county to talk to their constituents and let them know, that we do have openings, and we're always looking for people to apply, regardless if we have openings or not. It's good to have people to backfill if we need them.
I just would hate to see us, I would think that we should be the most sought after place in the county. I realize we can't compete with the state, but, to lose potentially good deputies to other departments that haven't at least had an opportunity would be, sad. So that's, I think, where Jeannie's going with that as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked with local PDs. Civil service kind of has a hold on us right now, where if someone doesn't meet the criteria, then we can't hire them as a full-time deputy.
sure.
Right.
They have to be on the civil service list. They have to be of such an age, and they have to have DCJS training through an academy or some type of academy setting for us to hire them. And it all costs money. And we are looking at some transfers, but again, it's not the easiest thing to get someone to transfer from out of the area. But we do have 2 civil service lists running right now. We're getting towards the end of our first and getting into the second civil service list. So we have a lot of candidates, and we're making sure we vet each and every one of them to make sure they're right fit for the county and for policing itself.
That's great. Chairman Morrell?
I was just going to add that a lot of your local police departments, like town police departments, are mostly part-time, and they're only looking for part-time. I've Stockport, we have a police department, and every one of our police are part-time staff, and they're not really at this point looking for full-time employment as a police officer. So
Yeah, and I think, as you said, Sheriff, that, you know, the criteria is different for sure, but this young man was looking for full-time, so anyway, I did tell him to reach out. Whether he does or not, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great. I encourage any supervisor that has contact like that to have any individual reach out to us.
Supervisor Metler, I think you had a second question. that
Yeah, I
I
did have a second
stepped over.
question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the recruitment, I just think we have to be proactive, and I think the mood in the country is changing somewhat, and people's attitudes are changing somewhat, and we should take advantage of that. But yeah, I had another question that I should have asked about 10 minutes ago. What happened to that car that it was totaled? How come we had a police car that was totaled? It's a 2021 Ford Explorer.
Yeah, I believe that was a deer hit.
Oh.
And that does happen. And unfortunately, cars aren't made like like they were used to. And the cost of repairing it, obviously the frame damage and so on and so forth was, you know, there was damage to the radiator, engine block, and everything was pushed back in. So the insurance
Can we
company-
go after the deer?
Well, we could, but I don't think he's going to be paying.
Okay,
Buy
thank you.
so much dinner right now.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you, Sheriff.
You're welcome. Just, there's the inmate report there. You can see, for 2022, February, we're slightly down from last year. However, our year-end total of, for this year is 5760 compared to last year's 10,620. We're steadily gaining on that. So I think we're going to make out all right. We've definitely reached out to Greene County, and I think we're going to see some influx of inmates from multiple counties, and looking forward to doing business with other counties outside of Columbia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
911.
Good evening, everyone. I have a resolution request to create and fill one full-time emergency dispatcher position. The position would be abolished upon the next retirement, currently scheduled for 2/14 of 23. We currently have two other eligibles to retire and one that's retiring at the end of the month. The process to train new employees on average takes us about 6 months plus. We would like to hire and get the new trainee going, so we're not too down at the same time. The position would be funded by the 21-22 Psap grant for 2022.
Move it, Stats.
Second.
I'll
Second,
second.
Morel.
I think I heard Morel first. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Supervisor Trimides?
Yeah, I was wondering if Rob, if maybe at a future meeting, you could just talk more about the Psap grants. I know that the grand total of like the past few years is quite a lot of money, and I'm not really sure how the money is being spent. So I'd love to just learn more about what you're thinking about the projects.
Sure. With the Psap grant, it's about $147,000, and we've utilized it for personnel services reimbursement for our staff for the last several years.
Is that the primary use of the revenue?
No, sometimes I utilize it for maintenance contracts as well, but in this particular situation, we want to avoid being, potentially 2, 3, 4 down in staff. So I'm, taking the opportunity to utilize it so that we can get extra staff going in the training program.
And then how much money do you have remaining? I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense in the situation that we're in. How much money do we have remaining on the 21-22 grant?
So I put in a budget for this particular one of which with employment, it's going to be, I didn't get the total amount back. It's going to be around $147,000. As of right now, the majority of it will be used to reimburse us for this 0.1 expenditure for the staff. So there won't be much left. I might use it for one maintenance contract, but I'll certainly let you know. I'll have to bring that through committee for approval.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. The next.
Go ahead.
The next general resolution that I have is reference to our communications radio project. And I would like to turn over to Ray Jakowski, the county engineer.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon,
Ray.
everyone. So this resolution is regarding a request authorizing the Columbia County Board of Supervisors as the seeker lead agent to determine the Columbia County 911 communication project that consists of 3 new communication towers to be an unlisted action and to make the determination that the project will not have a significant adverse environmental impact, will not require an impact statement, and that a negative declaration be issued by the Columbia County Board of Supervisors. For this project, seeker, again, the county is undertaking this project as a whole. It's been in contact with the municipalities in which the communication towers are located in. That's including New Lebanon, town of Gallatin, and Chatham as well. And since they're each doing their own review as it pertains to zoning, and since the county is overseeing the project as a whole, that's inclusive of all 3, again, to avoid segmentation, it's important that the county look at the project as a whole, and that's inclusive of all 3 towers as one project. Part 1 of the EAF form has been completed and has been attached. Part 2, as far as the responses identifying the potential impacts, has also been filled out with proposed or recommended responses. Part 2 consists of a total of 18 categories of potential impacts associated with the project. And of the 18 categories, only 6 have been identified with potential impacts. And each one of those recommendations would be that they be considered no to small impact. And those impacts potentially would be impact to land, impact to aesthetic resources, impact to historic resources, impact to energy, impact to community character, and consistency with community plans. Again, at this point, the proposed project is to better serve the emergency services and public safety throughout the county. And I believe, and Rob, or correct me if I'm wrong, in New Lebanon's case, I believe that it's actually a replacement of an existing tower. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Supervisor Holding, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Jerkowski and Rob Lopez, for all your hard work on this. I did have a few questions on the seeker form. For part 1 on page 2, there's 2 yes answers regarding comprehensive plans. And I think it's difficult when you're doing all 3 towns. But it talks about, basically, I read it as, does the comp plan give a recommendation for the site where this type of action would occur? And the answer is yes. Is that in all 3 towns? Because I'm not familiar in our comp plan that it defines, that this would be a good location for it, or am I reading that wrong? Or does it apply to the other towns, but not New Lebanon?
Yeah, so again, since it's all 3, one of the things that we did is I actually did take a look at your comprehensive plan, the update as far as the 2001 update. And actually, if you take a look at the goals, it does identify on page 60 of the goals, provide convenient, safe public facilities, maintain appropriate services that meet the needs of the community. And then it further goes on as a sub-goal that identifies continued effective emergency services and public safety. So again, it continues to also say continue to invest and support and evolve fire, police, and emergency services to meet current and future needs. So again, while it wasn't in the case of a map that identified specifically where it may be, in taking a look at more specifically your comprehensive plan and the update that was completed in 2021, we do believe that it actually meets the goals of the comprehensive plan.
And I agree with that. I guess I read this question to mean, like, did we define in our comp plan where within our town we would like these types of things? And maybe
and to let you know, none of the communities were that specific, although again, each one did speak to the point of supporting emergency services.
Okay, thank you. I have a few other questions. I'm sorry to, I've got about 5. So it does talk about lighting, and yes, there will be lighting and it'll be pointed at the ground, which is great. Thank you. And I would just ask specifically in the New Lebanon case, and I don't know the location of the others, but it is in a residential area. There are houses around it. So any kind of mitigation that you can have in place so that if it's a light that's on 24/7 or it's a light that's on at nighttime, that it's not shining through people's bedrooms, it would be great if you could just take that into consideration.
Supervisor Hodling, I'd just like to say that lighting that's defined, that's mentioned there, has nothing to do with a light that's on top of the tower. It's lighting that
Right.
would be outside the door at the shelter.
The shed, exactly. But just being cognizant that that light is, and it said right in there, pointing at the ground, which
Yes.
lets me know you're already thinking of that, but I just wanted to put that on record because there are houses around and it is on a higher elevation. And then my other questions regarding, it talks about a stream in New Lebanon, an aquifer in New Lebanon and Chatham, an endangered bat species, and that the New Lebanon site is used for hunting. But obviously the declaration is negative in part 2, does say yes to things, but it talks about a small impact. My guess would be that we're talking a telecommunications tower. We're talking a small building. So even though there are, say, an endangered bat species or these other things in place like an aquifer, there's nothing in this installation that could potentially be harmful to an aquifer or an endangered bat species. Am I kind of understanding overall?
Correct. Yes, that is
thinking there?
absolutely correct. Yeah, the actual impact, again, as you identified, we're talking a small shed for communications, the tower itself, the actual footprint of disturbances are very, very small. And in the case of the bat, which is an endangered species, the way the DEC requires that projects undertake potential mitigation would be any type of logging operation associated with tree removal and so forth. If it's found that that particular type of habitat is at the site, that be conducted during the winter months rather than the summer months and things of that nature. That specifically is referring to like the Indiana bat or something to that nature.
Got it.
But again, yes. So other than that, as far as, yes, we are near an aquifer, we are near a stream, but again, based on the small areas of disturbance, it's not anticipated that those would be impacted. So that's why we are making the recommendation that it be considered a no to small impact.
Great, thank you so much. And I do just want to state for the record and thank both Mr. Drakowski and Mr. Lopez. I do have a few community members in New Lebanon who have expressed some potential concerns. And although they certainly don't need to, Rob and Ray have both volunteered to come out and meet with residents in New Lebanon. And I just really appreciate you guys going above and beyond there. So thank you so much for, considering any potential. Obviously, this is a great thing. Obviously, we need increased 911. My husband's the fire chief in New Lebanon. As soon as he heard that it's going through, he was like, yes, so many calls are getting dropped within New Lebanon. So it's obviously in public interest and all of those things, but I also appreciate you being open to having conversations and listening to some of the potential concerns so that you can do it in the best way possible. So thank you both.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any
So we
other
need
questions?
A motion and a,
I was just checking to see if there are any more
Okay.
questions. Okay.
sorry.
That's okay. Motion,
I'll make the motion.
second,
I'll second it, Metler.
all in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? So carried.
And the last thing that I have for tonight, even though I actually indicated the wrong month at the agency data, it's actually our call volume for February of 2022 was 3,609 incoming calls to the 911 center. And then in the same month, we have dispatched and notified 1,146 EMS agencies, 348 fire agencies, 1,570 police polls, and 406 public service calls. And that's all I have.
Rob, I just had a follow-up question. When you and I met, I had asked about cell service just in general in the county, where I personally think that it's gotten worse, and you were gonna, not much you could do about it, but at least reach out. Just was curious if you found out anything as to why that possibly could be. I mean, there's sections all over the county where there's dead spots that there didn't used to be, et cetera.
Yeah, I think part of the issue there is as every day goes on, the public are switching more and more to cell phones. Each year, our wireless calls go up as our landline calls decrease. And what you're finding, I think, a lot of times is that, a cell site can only take so many calls. And so I think what you're seeing is as cell phone towers are saturated with calls, you're going out to the next available site. And that next available site is further away in mileage and may not have the same coverage as that local one that you're used to. And I think for the most part, that's what we're seeing. I think right now, AT&T is under the Firstnet program. They're looking to improve on their coverage in the county as well as the nation, as well as New York State. They have a contract to do that. I think you're going to see some slight improvement as a few more cell towers get added. And unfortunately, we have to wait for that. But I think what's happening is, and the short answer is the fact that there's more people using the system.
Okay, that makes sense. So, it's interesting, just as a side note, because we are working with some of, Consolidated and Mid-Hudson and some of the other big players for broadband, and they talked about cell phones in general, and what I found to be interested in, and I think someone should look into this, but when you get a new plan, they say they move you up on the priority list in reference to the kind of service you get and where you hit the towers and not. And after 6 months, when the honeymoon period's over, you get moved down on the list. So your service isn't as good. And then the new people that are coming on get moved up the list. So I didn't know that's what occurred. I don't know if you know about that, Rob, or not, but it was sort of interesting to hear that. So
Yeah.
over and your service is great. And then all of a sudden it starts to decline. And they said, well, that's how it works. So.
Yeah, the AT&T FirstNet project is designed for public safety, and it's designed for the users like the firefighters, the fire chiefs, the EMS paramedics, the police officers, that in time of need, the system is going to be designed so that they'll actually bump people off so that they can make that call during times of emergent need. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Are there any other questions for Rob? Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the committee?
I think George is on to finish.
George.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay, let's go
I was
back
going
to where you
faster
were.
in technology to keep up with me, I guess.
There was a question from Supervisor Chimides in reference to, correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor, why you chose, I have to come up, Lion something, the company that you chose. Is that correct?
Lion Protect.
Yep. They're the manufacturers of the equipment, and they did the installation. So they have the best knowledge of how to run the PM program, and they've got the data for potential wear parts and stuff like that. So they're the natural company to go with to do the better job.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I think we need a first and a second on this motion.
I'll move it, Holding.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Still carried.
The next resolution was for an annual inspection for the actual physical tower itself. And this is being done by, again, the manufacturers of the tower. We are just leaving the 12-month warranty period. So we wanted to make sure we could get them out here to inspect it sometime in the next 6 months to make sure we don't have any problems with any of the fire protection systems that they own on the tower, between, the insulated panels and some of the protection stuff that they're responsible for.
So George, this 15,000, the 10,000 from the last resolution and this 4,500, it'll just be an annual fee. Obviously, we'll approve it year by year, but this is an annual fee to make sure everything remains safe.
Correct. This one's an annual fee. The one with Lion Protects is a 5-year contract. So we got a better rate on that one. So
that 10,000 was for a full 5 years, 2,000 a year, or it's a 5-year contract at the 10,000 a year?
it's a 5-year contract at 10,000.
Thanks.
They have a lot more technology in that. There's computerized programs and all that stuff. So there's a lot more detail in their contract.
Any other questions?
I'll move it, Morel.
Second,
Helsley.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. The only other thing we got is a activity report for February was, we've assisted at 7 fire-related calls, and our spring semester of classes is underway, and probably by about mid-May, we'll be running 4 nights a week, if not 5. So that's good, and we're making good use of the facility. And the only other topic I just wanted to keep you folks up to speed on is the dedication open house for May 21st. The invites are out. We're all set to go. We're finalizing a bunch of the details. So please mark it on your calendar and come on out and see what you've graciously supported the volunteer fire service with.
That's great, George. Thank you. Are there any other questions for George?
We do have a public question when we get to the public time. Just
Okay, I think, are there any questions from the supervisors? Okay, there's a question from the public.
yes, Michael Mouden, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. He said, how far will the tower be set back from residences?
Are you still on, Ray?
Yeah, I'll have to check with Rob on that as far as, because it does vary based on each location, as far as the township itself.
Yeah,
Rob, do you
so
have-
it's a little about 2,000 feet relative to Lebanon. I'm not sure which one we're actually talking about.
He's a New Lebanon resident, so I believe
Okay.
he's referring to New Lebanon.
It's about 2,000 feet from the actual landowner's residence. It's further away for others, closer to 3,000 feet.
Are there any other questions? Kelly, that was the only one?
That was the only one.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
So
the motion.
moved.
Or second.
Okay,
I'll
all in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
See you
County government meeting to order. I'd like up first is planning, Patrice Perry.
Hello, everyone. I have one resolution. It is authorization to appoint a member to the County Environmental Management Council to representative for the Village of Kinderhook, Paul Green.
I'll make that motion.
Adams will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was quick.
Yep.
Okay, next up is MIS, Chris Sweet.
Evening, everybody. I'm going to be looking for a resolution for a 3-year contract for our Sophos antivirus. The 3 years gave us a substantial discount. And to do that, we have to go with a lease, tech lease, so we can do yearly payments.
I'll move that, Simmons.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, thank you.
That's it again? Oh my God, we're going way too fast here. Okay, third up is real Suzette's up. That'll slow us down a little bit. Come on, Suzette.
Yes, it will, Kippy. So I have one resolution request, and that is with regards to a refund in the town of Claremont for a property that was assessed for an entire house that is not located on this parcel. And the error began actually with one of the forms that gets filed with the deed, listing an incorrect tax map number. And that's sometimes how these things start. So the assessor had assessed a house on this property, but the house does not exist. And the refund is greater than $2,500, which is why I have to bring it to you for a full board resolution. The refund is in the amount of $7,990.71. This property owner, unfortunately, it also impacts her tax escrow. So I've had, many conversations with her, but we'll work with her to try to get that resolved as well. But I am looking for approval on that.
I'll make the motion.
You got a question?
Got a question, Brenda?
Yeah, Suzette, is this the first year that the error was identified? Yes. So this will clear out any problems going forward. It should, yes. That's
Thank
the
you.
hope. Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions? I need a second.
I'll second Adams.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, carried.
And the only other thing I was just going to mention, the reassessment projects, as I believe I had mentioned before, right around the 1st of May, the notices went out to town of Ghent property owners and town of Chatham property owners. And they could schedule an appointment to meet with their assessor, to speak with their assessor about their preliminary assessments. Those assessors put aside a great deal of time available for those appointments. And I'd say since those notices went out, I'm going to guess we've had probably 350 phone calls or so from property owners. Some made appointments and some didn't after the entire reval process was explained to them in a little more detail. If it was something that the staff here wasn't able to answer for them, then either myself or our deputy director would speak to them and try to answer any questions that they had. But I've heard from both assessors, and so far those appointments are going well, and it's normal. It's normal for towns that are doing full townwide reassessments.
I'll move this, Simmons, but Suzette, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised our building's not burnt down yet, and it's been a lot of work for the folks in town.
Yes, and I know, that the town and unfortunately, no matter, how many times you say for them to call one number, they automatically call the town first. And I will say, I know there was a typo on the one side of the notice that had an incorrect phone number. The other side had it correct, but it's what to expect when the town hasn't done a reassessment in many years. I think Ghent, it was like 14 years, 15 years, and Chatham 20 or more years. So we expect, this kind of response and numbers. And it was about 5,000 to 5,200 notices that were mailed. So, but I applaud your assessor and the Chatham assessor. They want to be fair to everyone, and at this point, everyone's got to, go through the process if they don't agree with their preliminary assessment. But they are putting a lot of hours in, a lot of hours in.
It'll be interesting on May 24th. I think that's when we're scheduled. Hopefully,
Grievance, yeah, grievance day. But I will tell you, we've encouraged people to talk with the assessor first, or to submit information to the assessor to support their opinion of market value, which typically in the other projects that we've worked on and assisted with, typically, and I'll knock on wood, but there hasn't been a huge turnout on grievance day. Ghent and Chatham are bigger municipalities, but even in Claverick last year, Kippy, I don't know that there was more than 30 grievances filed. And Claverick has 3,000 parcels.
Yep. Yeah,
So
it wasn't that many.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge turnout. So you never know. But people want to know what their taxes are going to be. And I can't guarantee what they're going to be at this point in time, because we don't have all of the numbers that we need in order to calculate final rates.
Right. Suzette, Brenda has a question for you.
Suzette, these are the first two that we've done since the market's been so hot. Do you think that's
No,
contributing?
well, we did Claverick and was it Germantown last year. And they had the sales 2020 sales as well. So yes, the market is high right now, and we have enough sales within a 2-year time frame to value residential properties. But you also have to consider that it has been 15 to 20 years since these ones have done reassessments. So you want everyone to be assessed and equally and pay their fair share of taxes. In the end, that's what you want. But I can't say that it's a perfect system, because it's not. The only other thing I just wanted to mention is, the town of Claverick did lose their assessor recently, Charlie Brewer. I have worked with him for the entire time that I have been director here, and he was an absolute pleasure to work with. So my condolences to Kippy and the town of Claverick.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's all I had, unless anybody else had any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is civil service. I think it's a new lady there, Kelly Baccaro. Yeah.
Actually, no, I sent you an email, Kippy, earlier,
Oh,
that
did you?
weights and measures is next.
Oh, okay.
Hi,
I got
Kippy.
it. We'll go to weights and measures.
Okay, so what I need to do is transfer money from 2 accounts to purchase a new computer. So I'm taking monies, $800 from my miscellaneous account and $1,450 from my equipment account to purchase a new computer for the new program that I bought, the WinWham, for doing testing and reports on site. So I'm asking for that approval.
I'll move that, Adams.
Second, Scalera.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, Sue.
Good night.
Now, Kelly?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so authorization to fill the position of Administrator of Civil Service Department and any backfills created from therefrom. Rebecca Vincerello is resigning from that position, and she took a job with the state. And so we need to fill her position and any backfills created therefrom.
Anybody have any questions?
I'll move it.
Second, Simmons.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca's done a extraordinary job. Is there any possibility that we have someone to promote from within, or is this going to the market?
Currently, the Civil Service Commission has the authority to appoint. And they are looking at the personnel assistant, Dawn Elbert, who's in that
Yeah.
position. Possibly, but they are advertising as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, Kelly?
We have the county attorney.
Yep.
Chris
Okay.
Watts.
Chris Watts. You're up, Chris.
Everybody.
How are you?
So I have two items to discuss, both of which are litigation related, and I'd asked that we could go into executive session to discuss them.
So moved, Morel.
Second motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. We're in executive.
Do I have to?
We need to wait for Oswaldo to.
Yep.
Oswaldo, are we good?
I have for everybody. Thank you.
Anybody else have any more questions or anything you want to talk about? Need a motion to go to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. I'll second that, Simmons.
All right, all in favor? Good night,
Aye.
everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Nice job, Chairman.